want to find that drive and focus that has you locked in and on fire every single day, my book, The Mirror of Motivation, will do it for you. I bought a copy for you. You take care of the shipping. The book is free. Click the link down there. I got you.
DreAllDay.com.
Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any living being to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all of this together, and what you get is the mindset, the method, the philosophy, the book, the show called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic is all opinions are not created equally. Now, this is a topic that is about understanding that not everyone, since we know that not everyone's the same, thusly, we should not be expecting for everyone to be treated the same, nor should we expect everyone to treat us the same regarding our knowledge, input, shared information, etc. This is a really important topic for those of you who work in any type of group, especially if you're on, let's say, a team where everyone or multiple people get to share their input, where you have to make group decisions, where maybe you're in a leadership position and you want to take input from people, but obviously you're not going to weigh everyone's input exactly the same, or maybe you have been. If you have been doing that, you should not be, and I'm going to explain that here today. If you are a member of a team and you feel like you should have a right to express your thoughts, your ideas, your opinions, you absolutely do have that right, but you don't have the right to actually have your ideas, thoughts, and opinions followed because maybe you haven't earned that right. Maybe you don't have the credibility amongst that particular group, relatively speaking, to be able to share that opinion. That's what we're going to talk about here today. The topic, again, is all opinions are not created equally. And that also goes for those of you who maybe you're not part of a group specifically in your everyday life, maybe like a family or in your business, or maybe you're not playing a sport, but just in life in general. Just because you have an opinion doesn't mean your opinion needs to be followed. Just because you expressed a thought doesn't mean it should be listened to. Just because you have a suggestion or some feedback or a comment or a critique or a question doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be responded to, again, based on who you're talking to, who you are, what is known about you with whomever you're talking to, or whatever group you happen to be a part of in that moment. Not every opinion holds the same weight. That's what you're going to understand by the end of today's episode. So let's get right into our points. Again, the topic is not all opinions, or let me say that again, all opinions are not created equally. Point number one, you got to play your position. So first of all, to play your position, you got to know what your position is. Now, we talked a couple episodes back. What business are you in? What is it that what is the topic or the subject or the area in which you really know what you're talking about, in which you really have some experience, where you have some proven results, that's also known as credibility, and where you have some time put into the game, that's also the experience. Those two things. Where do you have that? What position do you play? When you're working in any type of group, and I want you to understand when I ask those questions about your experience and your credibility, this is relative to whomever you're dealing with. So as soon as you get involved in a group, meaning two or more people, your level of experience and credibility, your expertise, is relative to whoever else is involved. Meaning you might be the expert at, let's say, basketball, when you're with a whole bunch of other people who never played basketball and you do. But if you get into a room with Kobe Bryant and Stephen Curry, you're the basketball amateur all of a sudden. So your relative level of expertise can change based on who you are talking with, who you are talking to, who you're listening to. So when you're in a group, meaning two or more people, respect the fact that not everyone should, nor will everyone receive equal weight when they're offering their point of view, because not everyone has the same level of experience, the same track record, or the same knowledge. I'll give you an example. Any of you ever watched the TV show Shark Tank? And that's a show where five or six entrepreneurs gather together. They sit up on the stage and they wait for people who are business owners, entrepreneurs who are coming up. These sharks are these millionaire business owners, as the show's introduction says. Then people who have businesses who want to either get an investment, have their company acquired in some way, get some type of connection and help from one of these millionaire or billionaire sharks. They come up into the Shark Tank. They present their business, they say what the business is about, maybe give a little demonstration, answer a bunch of questions about how their business is doing, where their business is going, what they want, what they're looking for, what percentage of the company they want to sell, how much they believe is worth, and then they do this big negotiation right there live on TV. Obviously that's not the whole thing, but live there on TV, and hopefully for the entrepreneur who's coming into the Shark Tank, one of these millionaire or billionaire sharks is going to offer them some type of business deal. I'll give you $500,000 for 20% of your business or something like that. That's what the entrepreneur who comes on the show is hoping to get. It's kind of like a game show in a way. I mean, business is a game in many ways. So on this TV show Shark Tank, anytime, this is the part that I want you to notice if you ever watch the show. If you've watched it, you've seen this happen before because they talk about it out loud. But even if you haven't watched the show, you'll understand this point. Since each one of these entrepreneurs has become publicly noted as successful for what they've done, everyone knows, including their fellow sharks, they know what this person did to become successful. So for example, whenever an entrepreneur comes into the Shark Tank offering a percentage of their company in exchange for a certain amount of money of investment from a shark, if that company happens to be a technology company, all the sharks say, look, we're going to defer to Mark Cuban on this one because Mark Cuban became a billionaire off of starting and selling a technology company. If it's a clothing company or something that has to do with branding, then all the sharks defer to this guy named Damon John. He started this company called FUBU, and he still works in the branding and merchandise space heavily these days as an entrepreneur. If it's something a product that could be sold on TV, for example, like infomercials or QVC, then this woman named Lori Greiner, she's the person that everyone defers to because they say, all right, this looks like a product that will go on QVC. So we're going to see what Lori thinks about this. Not necessarily that the sharks say, I won't get involved because it's a tech company and I'm not Mark Cuban, but they want to hear what Mark Cuban has to say. They want to see what questions Mark Cuban's going to ask, simply because they know that he probably knows more about that area than other people know about that area. So for example, if I was to show up on Shark Tank and I have a technology company and I'm trying to get an investment from, all the sharks, there are 5 or 6 of them sitting up there, they're all gonna withhold their judgments and questions, and first, they're gonna wait to see what Mark Cuban has to say. And one of them may speak up and even say, look, this looks like a tech deal, so let's hear what Mark Cuban has to say. Let's hear what questions Mark Cuban wants to ask. Let's see how Mark Cuban approaches this company. Let's see what Mark Cuban thinks about what you're presenting here. And this is a millionaire, billionaire business person is going to wait to hear what Mark Cuban has to say first, because they know that Mark has more information, more knowledge, more experience, more credibility in this particular space than they do. Even though they have a lot of experience, a lot of success, and they're publicly noted for being successful, they still defer to this person because they know this person knows more than they do in that particular area. And if Mark Cuban says, I'm not messing with you, Dre, with your technology company offering because ABC, often what happens is the other sharks, they'll also drop out. They'll also say, well, look, if Mark Cuban's not in and is a technology company, I know that he knows more about tech than I do. So if he's not interested, I'm not interested. And then they don't do the deal. Now, every once in a while, there may be some overlap and someone else will do a deal because they see something that they think Mark Cuban's not seeing. But often this happens. And if you ever watch the show, you'll see this happen over and over again. And I'm giving you this point to explain to you. No, the sharks are not necessarily, it's not like they're not thinking for themselves or that they would never make a deal that Mark Cuban wouldn't be involved in or whoever wouldn't be involved in based on what that industry is. It's them all showing you live on TV, national television, that when someone else knows more about them in a particular space, despite their personal success that they have accrued, they will still defer and follow and say, all right, and when it comes to tech, I'm gonna see what this guy has to say. If it comes to something TV, QVC based, I'm gonna see what Lori has to say. If it's branding, I'm gonna see what Damon has to say, or whoever the shark happens to be who's on the show that particular day. Why do they do this? Because they all know and respect who should know what. This is what people who reach success do. What did we talk about 2 days ago? We talked about CEO you and employee you. The CEO version of you knows what you know. You know what business that you're in. And you also understand that just because you're a CEO, just because you're the owner of a company, even if that company is doing amazing, that doesn't mean you're an expert in every single field. Doesn't mean that you could tell another CEO how to run their company just because yours is going well. Your company may be going well in industry A over here, but just because this CEO over here in industry F is not doing so great doesn't mean they should be getting advice from you because it's the same industry. Are there any parallels? Or is there anything that you're doing in yours that you are sure will work in theirs? As if you're not sure, then you shouldn't be offering your opinion. You shouldn't be offering your point of view. The challenge that a lot of people have these days is even when they haven't reached success, the level of success that some of these sharks have reached on Shark Tank, they believe that just because they have an opinion, just because you have a point of view, just because you have something to say, just because you have a megaphone, as they say, that megaphone being your YouTube channel or your podcast or your blog or your social media profile, just because you have the megaphone and a platform from which to speak does not mean you are entitled to being listened to. Because again, do you have the credibility? Do you have the experience? Do you have the knowledge relative to whom you are speaking? If you don't have it, then that may be a loud and clear reason why people are not really listening to you. If the topic is, again, let's say if I was a shark on Shark Tank and the topic is something about sports or sports performance or basketball, I'm going to speak up. But the topic is more fitted for somebody else in the room, then you got to know when to shut up. So this is the key point that I want you to take away from point one. Know when to speak up when you know what you're talking about. Again, relative to who else is in the room. And also know when to shut up based on who else is in the room and who you're actually talking to. The person you're talking to may know more about a certain area than you do, even though you have an opinion. Is it worth it to that person? That's a question that you should ask yourself before you offer an opinion, before you offer your feedback, before you speak. This is the thinking that you do before you talk. Point number two, today's topic, all opinions are not created equally. Understand that, as I said earlier, everyone's entitled to an opinion, but everyone is not entitled to be followed or listened to. In 2012, the United States USA Basketball, the organization, sent the team to, I believe it was London, the 2012 Olympics. The basketball team, the men's basketball team, featured a guy by the name of Kobe Bryant. And at the time, Kobe was on that team. He was the oldest player on the team. He had obviously achieved a lot of success in the NBA, had won 5 championships to that point. The team members looked up to Kobe as kind of like the elder statesman of the team, and there were a bunch of younger guys who were on their way up in basketball on that team. You had guys like Kevin Durant was on that team. I believe Russell Westbrook was on that team. Derrick Rose, I think, was on that team. Maybe not. LeBron James was on that team. A bunch of guys who were on their way up who are now, these days, some of the biggest stars in basketball, but at that time they were kind of coming up. Kobe was the main guy. He was the OG on the team, we'll say, original gangster on that team in 2012. And before the Olympic Games, obviously the players did a whole lot of press and they talked to international media. And someone asked Kobe the benign question, hey Kobe, do you think you can learn anything from any of your teammates here at the Olympics? And Kobe Bryant's answer was no. And so I guess the press person who had asked this question was kind of surprised, and Kobe said, no, I can't learn anything from my teammates on Team USA. I mean, these are all the best players that America had to offer at the time. What do you mean you can't learn from them? So the person followed up with a question and said, well, what are you saying, Kobe? You know everything? And Kobe said, no, I don't know everything, but I know more than they do. Now, you may think that that's cocky. You may think that's kind of arrogant of Kobe to say. Maybe you think that even if you did know more than the other people around you, you might not give such an answer. But here's the thing that you need to take away from that. The reason I'm sharing it, Kobe was absolutely right. Going along with the point that I'm making here today, if you know the most of everybody in the room, you should be talking the most of everybody in the room, at least when it comes to the information sharing part of it. Now, again, if you want to listen to people's opinion, you want to hear people's feedback, you want to consider everyone's point of view, you can do that if that's the way that you want to do things. But there also comes a time when you may need to pull rank and let people know, listen, the reason why I'm doing the most talking in this room is because I know the most of anyone in this room. When two people are working together on a certain thing, the person who knows more should be the one doing most of the talking. They should be the one making most of the decisions. They should be the one whose opinion matters more than the other person's opinion. Again, the reason why this topic is so important is because these days, a lot of people seem to believe that just because they have an opinion, that it should be listened to. Again, if you were talking basketball with Kobe Bryant, do you believe that your opinion is worth the same amount as Kobe's? No, it's not. Because you don't have the same experiences. You don't have the same credibility. You don't have the same level of achievements. Why would your opinion matter equally to someone who has more than you in a certain space? If you know the most, talk the most. The problem is, in these days, I think what we can call it is, what I like to call it is participation trophy culture. So it's not really about everybody being called a winner, but it is people thinking that just because I'm participating, I deserve the trophy. Participating in this sense, what I'm talking about here today, means you having something to say. Everybody has something to say, and nowadays we all have a platform from which to share what we have to say. But just because you are participating by speaking does not mean you deserve a trophy of being listened to, of being followed, of having your opinion respected, of having your perspectives considered, of having your suggestions followed. That's the trophy that you're looking for, but if you haven't earned that trophy, you don't get a trophy. Okay, that's the participation trophy culture. That's what I mean when I say that. Even though we are all created equal, we do not remain equal. On the Houston Rockets, speaking of basketball, everyone knows the Houston Rockets basketball team. There's a guy named James Harden. Now last season, not this current NBA season, but last NBA season, James Harden averaged over 36 points per game. That was the most points anybody had averaged in a game since the last guy to average that many points, close to that many, was Kobe Bryant back in 2006. Before that was Michael Jordan in 1988, and before that was a guy named Wilt Chamberlain back in the 1960s. So this is a lot of points that James Harden was scoring. James Harden's a damn good player, and he shoots the ball a whole lot of times, and his usage rate, which is a statistic that analyzes how much does a particular player actually use up, so to speak, a possession in basketball, meaning they either shot the ball, turned the ball over, or got fouled. James Harden's usage rate was the highest of any player in the NBA. In other words, he had the ball in his hands more than anybody else. Now imagine if you were a player on the Houston Rockets last season playing with James Harden. He has the ball in his hands all the time. He's shooting the ball all the time. He's scoring all these points, and you are his teammate. You're an NBA player. I mean, you did all this hard work. You've probably been playing basketball since a very young age. You put all this time in through high school, through college, or wherever you came from, made it to the NBA. Put in all this work on your game in the off seasons. You have a trainer. You're doing all these things to make yourself the best basketball player you could possibly be. You probably have some really good offensive skill. Now you get on a team with a guy who gets to shoot the ball more than anybody else in the NBA, is dominating the ball more than anybody else in the whole league, in the whole world of basketball. How would you feel about that? And when you think about that, considering all the context that I've given you so far in this show, this episode, how would you feel about that? First, you can think about how you would feel, then think about it on a more practical level, a more logical level, a more, quote, realistic level. What makes sense of how you should feel? Because if James Harden is good enough to be scoring that many points, and there's very few other guys who've ever done it, as I told you, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Wilt Chamberlain, all those guys are Hall of Famers, all considered probably in the top 10 players in the history of basketball, and he's scoring that many points. There's a reason why he's scoring that many points. The reason why he has the ball all the time. You should be happy that you're on a team with a guy like that. He deserves to shoot the ball that much. Not everybody deserves the same number of field goal attempts on a basketball team. That makes sense, right? Not everyone should be shooting the exact same amount of times. It's not equal opportunity. Life is not an equal opportunity game. I know that Nike has t-shirts they printed up to say equality on it, right? The hashtag equality. I don't know why Nike is printing up equality t-shirts. I mean, Nike has unfair advantages over every other sports athletic apparel company out there. They're not making it an equal playing field for everyone. They want it to be unequal. They want it to be unfair. They don't want equality. If everything was equal, then Nike wouldn't be Nike. They want it to be unfair. James Harden wants it to be unfair. He knows it's hard for people to guard him one-on-one. That's why the Rockets keep giving him the ball so he can score more points, and hopefully the team wins more games. That's the whole point. When you are wherever you work, if you're a person in a leadership position, do your subordinates get an equal amount of say in a decision-making process that you get? Hell no, they don't get the same amount of say. There's a reason why they're the subordinate and you're the supervisor. Everybody does not get an equal opportunity. It's not supposed to be like that. It will never be like that. And anywhere you are in life, those of you who are in the amateur ranks of anything that you do, if it is set up where you are now, that everyone is treated equally, everyone is given an equal amount, everything seems, quote, fair, close quote. I talked about this last week in a previous episode about unfairness. Listen, it's not going to stay like that. All right, once you get out of the amateur ranks, you get into the pro ranks, wherever you're going, it's not going to be like that. So if you're thinking that it's going to be like that, allow this to, let me plant the seed in your mind. So once you get there and you see that it's not like that, you're not shocked. You're not taken aback. It doesn't bother you that things are not as equal as you thought they were supposed to be. In the summer of 2019, the U.S. women's national team playing soccer went out and won the World Cup, right? Again, and a Americans women's team has been dominant in soccer for many years. And now the chorus has gotten louder and louder that the women believe they deserve equal pay. Now, there have been a lot of details thrown out there from both sides of the people who are the proponents of the women's national team saying they deserve equal pay, and then on the other side, the actual U.S. Soccer Federation saying that the women are actually receiving, as far as percentages of money coming in, more than the men actually get, and then the women are throwing something back. So there's this whole back and forth with numbers and choosing certain statistics to tell a certain story, paint a certain narrative. But from what I've heard and I've seen, it seems pretty clear that I think one thing we can all agree on is that the men's soccer organization for the United States just brings in more money than women's soccer organization. Men's soccer just makes more money than women's soccer. They don't make the same amount of money, so the pay should not be equal, because there's not an equal size pie to be split up. The pie for the men is way bigger than the pie for the women. It shouldn't be equal, and it doesn't make sense for it to be equal. And about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, there was an article that someone did talking about basketball and how women basketball players had this crazy hectic schedule that they had to keep up in their professional careers just to make the kind of money that they want to make. Because the WNBA over here in the United States, the highest salary that a woman gets is in the low six figures, while the lowest salary that a man can make playing in the NBA is damn near close to $1 million. And there are women players who, in terms of stature, are much higher up in the WNBA. I mean, like the Kobe Bryant or the LeBron James of the WNBA is making 10% of what a bench warmer is making in the NBA. So some players, or based on the tone of the article, I wouldn't say any player particularly said anything, but based on the tone of the article, they were trying to draw this conclusion that it's not fair that these women players have to play in the WNBA, make 10% of what some bum player in the NBA is making. Then they have to go play overseas to make more money, and they basically they don't get an off season because they play the whole year overseas in the fall, like right now, and then in the summer they're playing in the WNBA. There's no off season. They just have to run themselves ragged just to make somewhat close to what the NBA players are making when they only had to play one season, and a women player maybe make much better than the man player. And I completely understand the perspective, but when you look at the bigger picture, you have to understand that, listen, men's basketball just brings in more money than women's basketball. It's not the man's fault that men's basketball brings in more money. It's just what it is. Now, if you want to change that equation, what will have to happen is people will have to spend more money on women's basketball. That's just what the game is. Everything is not going to be equal. This whole chorus that people like to put out that things should be equal, that equality, everything needs to be fair, everyone needs to be on a level playing field. The playing field will never be level. So anyone who's told you that, if you learned it in elementary school, if your parents have told you, if you've been running around posting these hashtags, understand that if the pie is not equal, there's no way that the slices are going to be equal. That's just the way that it works out. That's just the way that I see it. And all right, let's move on to point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is not all opinions are created equally. If you want to be more heard, what do you do then? What if you just heard what I said there about equality and the soccer team and basketball players talking about equal pay? If you're part of a group and you feel like you're not being listened to at all, even though you believe you have something to say, even though you believe you have an opinion that should be listened to, even though you haven't been around as long as everybody else in the room, you don't have the credibility or experience or the accomplishments of anyone else in the room, but you still believe you should be listened to more often. You still believe that your perspective matters. You still believe that your points should be followed because you just believe in it. What should you do then? How do you actually make this scenario change? I'm gonna tell you how to do it. If you want to be more heard, if you want to be followed more often, and you want to be looked to more often for your perspective. You want people to listen to your information. You want people to follow what it is that you're sharing. Here's what you got to do. You must skill up. In other words, work on your game. Because life is not an equal opportunity situation. It's not an equal opportunity game. The pay is not going to be equal. The playing field is not going to be level. Everyone is not going to get the same opportunities. Not every player is going to get the same amount of shots. Not everyone's going to get the same amount of attention. That's the way the game is set up. So instead of hoping that the game becomes fair so everyone is getting the same amount, don't aim for that, because it's not going to happen and it's not supposed to happen. All right, there's a reason why James Harden gets to shoot the ball 25 times a game. And there's another guy on that team who, if he shoots twice, he should be happy. All right, there's a reason for that. What you need to do is get the unfairness working in such a way that works for you, whatever that happens to be. Maybe the unfairness going with somebody else having to do more is actually better for you. We just talked about delegation a couple of days ago. Maybe you want to delegate the work to somebody else. Listen, James Harden may be getting all those shots, but you know who makes the most money on the Houston Rockets? Not James Harden, it's the owner. The owner's the guy making all the money, and guess how many shots he shoots every game? He don't shoot any shots. So again, you don't have to aim to be the person who's getting all of the attention or all the work or all the field goal attempts, metaphorically speaking. Maybe you want to delegate that to somebody else who's going to do all the work, but you can still set it up in such a way that you're the one who's getting more of whatever you're trying to get. Again, what business are you in? The owner of the Houston Rockets, he's the one who pays all those guys. So if you see how much money they're making, think about how much money the owner's making. If he can pay them and he still has something left over. So what you need to do, if you want to be more heard, followed, and looked to, is skill up, work on your game. Remember that life is not an equal opportunity. Preschool's over, folks. Any of you who's in preschool, all right, maybe it's not over for you, but everybody else is over. If you want to be listened to and have your perspective respected, it will always be relative to the level of skill and game that you bring to the table. Nothing more, nothing less. So if you feel like you're not getting that opportunity, you're not being heard, your opinion's not being respected, maybe it's because you just don't have the game yet. You haven't proven the game yet. You have not stepped up your skills yet. Once you do that, you'll find that people will start looking to you more often, because we all want to look to the winners. We pay attention to the people who are getting things done. If you're getting things done, people will notice. And when people notice you're getting things done, they want to hear what you have to say. But if you're talking and you haven't proven anything, then there's a reason why nobody's listening. That just makes sense. Does it not? Let's recap today's topic, which is all opinions are not created equally. This is about understanding that not everyone's the same. We will never all be the same. And thusly, everybody should not be treated the same way. Point number one, play your position. Do you know what business you're in? When you're working in a group, meaning two or more people, respect the fact that everyone should not receive equal weight when offering a point of view, because not everyone has the same experience. On Shark Tank, if it's a tech play, Mark Cuban's the guy they listen to. If it's branding, they listen to Damon John. If it's some TV product, they listen to Lori Bernier. Why? Even though these people are millionaires and billionaires, they still defer to other people simply because they know what they're good at, they know what business they're in, and they know what other people probably know better than they do. And if they are able to be humble enough to listen to somebody else, you should be too. Unless you are also a millionaire, billionaire shark, and you want to go a different way, then start your own TV show and you show us how it can be different. Another thing on point number one, you must know when to speak up and also when to shut up. A lot of people can learn a lot from that principle right there. Point number two, everyone is entitled to an opinion, but not everyone is entitled to be listened to. In the 2002 Olympics, Kobe Bryant said, I can't learn anything from my teammates on the Olympic team, even though they're very good players, not because I know everything about basketball, but I know more than these guys know. And he was absolutely right. If you know the most, you should be talking the most. And if you know the least, you should be talking the least. That's just the way that it works. The problem these days is everyone wants this participation trophy that just because you are speaking, you think you should be heard equally to everyone else in the room. That's not true. If that was the case, then there'd be no reason for any of us to work on our games, because everyone would just be held equally. Everyone would get equal rations of success and money and food and everything. We would have, I think that's what they call socialism, right? Well, in this country, we got capitalism. In capitalism, whoever has whoever has put in the most work is usually the person who wins. The person who produces the most success gets the biggest slice of the pie to get the biggest piece of the chicken. So if you want that, what you need to do is look at point number three. If you want to be more heard, more followed, more looked up to, receive more rewards, you got to skill up. You got to work on your game. Life is not an equal opportunity situation. preschool's over, when everything was fair. You want to be listened to and have your perspective respected relative to your skill and game that you bring to the table. All you got to do is bring more skill and more game to the table. You want to learn how to get more of that game on a daily basis. And, well, you're going to get it on a daily basis already. If you want to learn how to access all the game that I've already shared on a daily basis, 800 hours plus worth, because you're not going to remember every word that you heard here today. You want access to it forever, plus a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm going to tell you about right now. Keep listening. I'm going to tell you how to get that game, keep that game, maintain that game, so that your game never slips, so that you are the person getting the biggest slice of the pie in your particular area of business, which means you are never underselling yourself, undervaluing yourself, and you're not being undersold nor undervalued by anybody else. If that's what you want, listen to this. Work on your game. Dre all day.